I'd like to call this meeting to order. If I could have everybody take their seats, I'd like to get started. If I could have everybody take their seats, and we'll get started here. Good afternoon. Welcome to your Innovation Grants, Technology, Commerce, and Trade Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Buscaino and Mr. Krikorian. And we have a number of items. However, on item number 3, I've been informed that the folks from the LAEDC, unfortunately, the main presenter has a flat tire and will not make it on time, so I'm going to postpone that item until our next agenda, so we will not be hearing item number 3 today. So we're going to hear everything except for item number 3. We have a number of cards, and pursuant to the rules with folks who are doing multiple cards, so we'll go through those to take. We're going to have 2 minutes for to speak to all the items, and then we'll do general public comment at the end. So starting with Ms. Hernandez, Antonia Ramirez. I'm sorry, Ms. Ramirez, are you here? Okay, we'll have 2 minutes on items 1 through 9. Again, item 3 though has been postponed.
Thank you very much. First, I do not trust Mayor Eric Garcetti's selection of appointments. Thus far, they have failed to perform in a top-notch manner and to oversee all details in their job description. Therefore, Mr. Thomas Sales, who is being appointed to the Board of Airport Commissioners, it is my hope that you damn well ensure first and foremost, pilot safety, and that there is less stress or fatigue to our beloved pilots, and that they don't sleep in a makeshift cot at an LAX office prior to their takeoffs or after their takeoffs. I demand that all our beloved pilots stay in the best hotels with all the best comforts, privacy, full body massage and acupuncture gym, and finest cuisine with the world-renowned chef Gordon Ramsay. He's the best. And lastly, that there is more of a symbiotic relationship between the ATC and pilots, especially when there is an impending Mayday. God bless these pilots and bring them down safely, please. God bless our pilots and Donald Trump. What else? What other number did you say?
You put it on for all item numbers, but we postponed number
and
3.
Number 3 is out. Okay, so let's see number 5 here. This is a matter of principle. I worry about our baggages being mishandled in their mishandling system. What they need is to overhaul the whole entire system. Anybody can pick up your suitcases, your bags from the LAX baggage carousel. We need to securely safeguard all our passengers, pilots, baggages, because as we all know, LAX has hired over 90% wetbacks and Chango Latino gangbangers and other third world thieves who daily steal baggage contents and entire suitcases from the working American and the visitors. It has to stop. Hire U.S. military veterans and put an end to this thievery. God bless America and Donald Trump.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Next, Mr. Herman. Do you want to come forward? And you put in cards for multiple items, so feel free to make. No, public comment will be at the end. General public comment at the end. So this is just on the items.
I thought you wanted me to go to the County Board of Supervisor meeting today. Hilda Solis is my favorite.
You're welcome to go to any meetings you like. This is your time.
Okay, well, since I'm the little puppet speaking on behalf of public concern and interest, you see, under item agenda number 1, Mr. Thomas Salas on the Board Airport Commission. Is he qualified? Does he respect my rights under the ADA? After all, most of you get lawsuits against you because you do not follow the Ralph M. Brown Act 54950. Am I right? Yes, thank you. See, I'm right. And when it comes to this CFR 35, I won't talk about it. What about Section 28 of the American Disability Act, which describes Title II discrimination at the airport? You violate my rights. All I am is a little puppet, and I want this address before you elect Mr. Thomas Salis on the Board of Airport Commission because there's too many lawsuits and the mayor wants to borrow money on bonds and grants, which I object. After all, there's $17 million missing in the city coffers. Now going on item number 2, technology. Yeah, we need technology, so I pass item 2. Yes, by item 3, I cannot speak on. Pass. Item 4, I don't give a shit. Item 5, I don't give a shit. Item 6, the Airport Commission report to the restate lease. Yes, we must reinstate a lease. Give the Tom Bradley International Airport company covering operation maintenance so we don't have to spray the shit of the wetbacks out of there so we can fly clean.
Thank you, Mr. Herman.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next, we have cards I assume were filled out by Mr. Spindler. Its name is the Puppet.
I'm a little dumber. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, Thomas Sales, is that because he's for sale? Is that because he's like Paul Krikorian and for sale? Why are we putting somebody for sale ahead of the Board of Airport Commissioners? What happens if Mr. Sales gets sued for negligence? Is he bonded? Fiscal disclosure statement pending, background pending. Well, we don't know. He could be on a no-fly list. Imagine if he was on a no-fly list and his real name was Abdul. Anyway, the information is just irrelevant for this purpose. Now, number 3, if you get a flat tire, you call AAA. Even a puppet can fucking do that. You just gotta get on a cell phone and go, hello, AAA, I need to be at City Hall because I have to give a report on item number 3. They'll send a helicopter. Yes. And that will take you to the airport first. So you have to take airport baggage on number 5, the Tom Bradley International Terminal. Why do we name a fucking terminal after Bradley? Bradley never flew an airplane that I knew of. Bradley was a cop. Did you know that? Did you know that Tom Bradley went to night school at Southwestern Law School with my uncle? No, you didn't know that. Did you know my father played golf with Tom Bradley? No, you didn't know that. None of you knew that shit. Yes, well, see, a long time ago, before we became puppets, we used to have some power in this fucking building. So that's why we're suing you, because you cocksuckers don't respect us old school gangsters. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Please keep comments down. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Hunt listed as the Red Chief Hunt. You put in a card on item number 1. 2 minutes on that item.
Good morning, Commission. Michael Hunt. My concern about this appointment and Thomas Saling as the Board of Airport Commissioners, we're in a time now where we're starting to see more and more commissioners not qualified for the job, and I really need to know if this is a paying job, such as Matt Johnson and Barry Sanders, who now have legal litigation pending against them. You guys know what happened to Barry Sanders after he left the Parks and Recreation. Eric Garcetti had to fire him, and it's coming to be that the commissioners don't really understand not only 1, the Brown Act, but 2, their position to the public, and 3, what their job description and their outline is. Before we submit this, Mr. Thomas, and disclose his background pending, has he done any public service as a commissioner? Number 2, does he really understand the Brown Act? Number 3, will he be sued for limited or liability for this position if mistakes are made on his behalf because he doesn't understand his commissioner's job? Can anybody verify his salary to me on this commission?
As you know, the way the process works, we can't have a back and forth. You will get your answers during when he comes up and we discuss it, but we don't allow for the...
Well, I mean, is it a salary position? Can I get a yes or no on that?
Again, we don't allow back and forth with the chair on these issues, but I guarantee your answers will come up when he comes forward. You will hear the answer to that.
He'll be here.
He will be.
Okay, thank you.
He is. Thank you. Thank you. And again, just a reminder about public testimony. We're here to hear the testimony. We're not permitted under the Brown Act, which you're very familiar with, when engaging in a back and forth with folks or answering questions, things that are not on the agenda. And when people raise good questions, we make sure that they get answered in the discussion that comes forward. And toward that end, we now we're going to take up this item and bring Mr. Sales up to tell us a little bit about his background. I mean, I should just say, coming up, I'm really thrilled. We had a chance to meet beforehand, and we'd met before. This is someone who has served as a commissioner before, the president of the DWP board, and has, we are very lucky to have someone with, even before he speaks, with this kind of background, having served the city on numerous occasions, and being willing to volunteer his time as a board member is extremely, we're grateful for that opportunity, and we'd love to hear about yourself and how you view your role as an airport commissioner as it relates to the community and what you see moving forward. So, Mr. Sales, with that,
Mr. Chair,
I give you the floor.
would you like me to read it into the record first?
Thank you. Before I give you the floor, if you would officially read it into the record, the item.
Sir. Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Thomas Salis to the Board of Airport Commissioners for the term ending June 30, 2019.
Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council. My name is Tom Sales, and I am USC Senior Vice President for University Relations. More importantly, I was born and raised here in Los Angeles. I grew up in South LA. Went to LA public schools, George Washington High School to be precise. Went away for college and law school. I am a lawyer by training. My career has been a combination of public and private service. I've worked both in state government and as well as in the private sector. I am really excited about this opportunity. It's really my privilege to hopefully do what I can to help move the airport forward. I'm particularly excited about the modernization program. And one of the things I would hope to do is to make sure that we strike the proper balance in terms of addressing the needs of all the stakeholders. And that's all of us in this city and, quite frankly, in the region. I am familiar with the Brown Act. As the chairman said, I was chair of the board of DWP for several years, and we worked very closely to make sure we always adhere to the Brown Act. And probably in closing, I'd like to say I really do view the airport and its modernization as key to the future of this region. We are a first-rate city, therefore we need a first-rate airport, and we are moving in that direction, and I'm looking forward to doing what I can to help us achieve our goals. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Just tell us a little bit about, you mentioned certainly the modernization program. What are the highest priorities for you for this airport?
I think for me the highest priority is the execution of the modernization program, whether or not that's the people mover or the various lines coming into the airport, making sure that we manage these capital projects in a way that they are on time and on budget, but also that we take in consideration the concerns of the community and the various stakeholders. I have the privilege in my current job of working on major capital projects, and I'm hoping that I can bring that experience to bear to make sure we achieve all the goals for all concerned.
Thank you. Colleagues? Mr. Krikorian?
Go ahead. Well, first, let me say I couldn't be happier about your appointment, Mr. Sales. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've served the city in so many different capacities, and have contributed so much to our moving forward. I think you're going to be a tremendously effective commissioner at LAWA as well. So thank you for being willing to continue to serve. One of the concerns I think that most Angelenos have about the airport, most Americans have about the airport in this day and age, especially with an Olympics bid coming up, is the issue of security and public safety. And I'd like to know if you've had an opportunity yet to review any of the previous studies that have been done about enhancing security at LAX, or if you have thoughts independently about that, about some of the work that the Blue Ribbon Commissions in the past have done.
Unfortunately, I have not had that opportunity. The briefings are being set up. I didn't want to be presumptuous until I went through the confirmation process. But I could not agree more. I mean, all of us are deeply affected by security issues. The recent events just brought that front and center to all of us. What I will say to you is I will get up to speed on those issues as quickly as it is humanly possible, and that will very, very much be a priority of mine as a commissioner.
And certainly in your capacity on the DWP board, you've had occasion to deal with issues of homeland security and interfacing with the federal government and securing the utilities, and I'm sure that will be useful background as well in this capacity.
I think that's correct, yes.
You're good. Great. Well, I think without objection, we want to move your nomination forward and recommend approval.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Great. Thank you. So let's move on to item number 2. If you'd read it into the record, please.
Yes, sir.
And we'll bring up Claudia Aguilar from the CAO's office and Ted Ross from ITA.
Item number 2 is a CAO and ITA reports relative to a personal services agreement with CGI Technology and Solutions, Inc. for cloud hosting and managed application services.
Good afternoon.
Claudia, go ahead.
Before you is Claudia Aguilar with the City Administrative Officer. Before you is a 5-year agreement with CGI Technology Solutions with an option to extend for an additional 5-year term to provide cloud hosting and managed application services for the financial management system, referred to as FMS. ITA currently hosts FMS in a local city data center. CGI will now host and operate the application and environment in CGI's hosting facility. Approval of the recommendations in this report will allow CGI to assume responsibility for the majority of the technical support for FMS. The city has the option to terminate this agreement at any time after the 3rd anniversary of the transition to CGI by providing notice to CGI. However, the city will be required to pay a termination for convenience fee that will range from $1.4 million in year 5 to $356,000 in year 10 of the agreement. The city may also terminate this contract in the event of a material breach by CGI without having to pay a convenience fee. The 2016-17 budget included $1 million for the transition to CGI-hosted model. Funding in the amount of $43.7 million would be requested over the remaining 9-year term. In July 2017, ITA will go live with FMS procurement modules, which will replace the supply management system. It is anticipated at this time that we will be beginning our transition over to CGI. We have representatives from ITA if you have any questions on the contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any opening comments?
Would love to. Ted Ross, General Manager with the Information Technology Agency. The ITA believes in the importance of periodically reevaluating the way we deliver our IT services. We find that opportunities will come up that allow us to deliver a service better or at a lower cost to the city, or sometimes both. One such opportunity came about with us for the hosting and the maintenance of the city's financial management system. Since 2011, the FMS system has been reliably managing the city's accounting and financial records. It includes our general ledger, cost accounting, accounts payable, accounts receivable, budget controls, etc. Last year, this system processed almost 900,000 transactions by over 2,000 city users and is connected to 125 system interfaces. Needless to say, it's a very big system. This July, as Claudia mentioned, the FMS 2.0 procurement system will go live, in which it incorporates the city's purchasing process also into that system. As part of the new procurement model, we wanted to evaluate support and maintenance for FMS, and we're proposing the use of the CGI Managed Advantage service. Under Managed Advantage, as Claudia mentioned, CGI would, number one, host the FMS system in their data center, Number 2, provide technical support for FMS issues along with service level agreements to ensure timely resolution of issues as well as system uptime, and perform 2 system upgrades as a part of the contract during the life of the 10-year contract. The ITA would continue to provide FMS interface and reporting support while ramping down staff to work on other key ITA systems, and there's plenty of those. The ITA believes that there's multiple key benefits to this contract. Number 1, the proposed contract would save the city around $6 million over a 10-year period. Number 2, the proposed contract greatly reduces city risk. The ITA, everyone knows, it's common with many city departments, but the ITA is facing a rapidly retiring workforce. About half of our staff are eligible to retire this year, and this ensures that we have support and a continuity of experience for the system. Another aspect of risk is that the system is proprietary just by its nature. It's an off-the-shelf system. So there's actually not a lot of capabilities the city has to attract and retain staff. It's a problem the city has that CGI does not, being that it implements the system across the country. Number 3, it results in better technical support than today. It has service level agreements that guarantee service. It has 2 upgrades included in it. And since it's off the shelf, really the nature of the system is the city has to be able to do limited changes anyway, and this is something that we think is best supported through the contractor themselves. We, of course, have support from Controller and General Services for this. Our customers, I think, speak very loudly in regards to that. Number 4, Managed Advantage contract produces predictable flat spending, which is much easier to budget and maintain. And number 5, it ensures disaster recovery. This system will be up and available should anything happen in the LA region as an emergency. The ITA does not enter in these types of agreements lightly. This is the result of hundreds, literally hundreds of hours of negotiation over the last months. It's include detailed reviews by city attorney, CAO risk manager, controller's office, and others. The service is used by over a dozen other state and local governments, and we believe this contract will help ensure the health and reliability of a critical system at a reduced cost compared to today. And certainly would like to be open to address any questions.
Great, thank you. I mean, this item is actually, it's a big deal, what we're talking about today, even though it's sort of cloaked in a lot of technical jargon.
It is.
It's a big deal to move off the cloud like this, and it's not really something you can look back and change very easily. Although
Correct.
I know that there's arrangements written in and there's a 5-year look back. But actually, let's start with that. There is a 5-year mark on this, but it really seems to be more of a 10-year contract. Could you explain that?
Certainly. Laura Ito with ITA. Yes, this is really something that the city should consider as a 10-year commitment to this service because it will be a huge effort to move the services and the hosting back to the city. So it was really just broken out as 2 5-year contracts for the purposes of having a manageable limitation on liability that the risk manager could approve. So the general way that the risk manager likes to do contracts is to have the limitation on liability be the entire value of the contract. So with this, for data breach in particular, we can look at the limitation on liability that CGI would be responsible for as approximately $20 million for the first 5-year term and $23.7 million for the second 5-year term. And that's specific to liability for data breach. Liability for any other type of claim would be 2 times the annual value of the contract.
What we often find for these types of systems, and every system has kind of a different strategy around it, these very large, what they call ERP or enterprise resource planning, you tend to have with you for a long time. The prior system the city had from 1987 to 2011. This system has been operating since 2011. So in working with CAO and with city attorney, it seemed like it made a lot of sense to negotiate the best possible deal, and a 10-year contract would afford us that.
Great. And just to be clear, because I know that part of the savings from this comes from the fact that you're not going to need as many people for this system, but I want to make it very clear, nobody is being laid off because of this.
Correct.
In any way, shape, or form. You're still struggling to ramp up as fast as you can given all of the retirements. But I just want to put that clearly out on the record. Is anybody going to be laid off because of this?
Absolutely nobody's going to be laid off because of this.
Okay. And part of the savings is also coming from avoiding the upgrade costs and some other cost avoidances. Could you quantify that? How much we're saving because of that? And I understand this decision is not just cost driven, because in part it's a smarter way to go in terms of keeping up with the technology and the changes, but it is also being sold to us in essence as a cost savings. So how much of the cost savings is coming from those cost avoidances, the upgrades, and those kinds of things?
The nature of a system like this is you don't just install it, you have to upgrade it, the same way you do with Microsoft Office or Windows or whatever it may be. A system like this can cost, for simply a minor technical upgrade, between $3.5 and $6 million to make that upgrade. One of the issues we run into when we have these discussions is that we've invested quite a bit. The implementation of FMS, which was between about 2008 and 2011, was a $50 million investment by the city. Since then, we've had investment that gets us up closer to around $80 million. So these are certainly big numbers, and these are actually a fraction of the numbers that other large governments in our area have been spending. They spend significantly more. So it's very important to look at that. Once you make that investment, you have to maintain and upgrade and keep it reliable and running smoothly. I think quite often council hears from city departments in which we come and say we have a burning platform, a system that's failing, a system that the vendor says will no longer support or maintain or replace. And we have to have a large amount of money to go ahead and replace that. We don't want to be in that place with FMS. And so exactly what you mentioned, those technical upgrades keep the system running, and it keeps it optimal, keeps it supported over its life. And that's bundled into the cost of the contract.
Are there any circumstances that could lead to an increased cost under this contract? Laura?
No, we really have covered 44,000 consulting hours that should be able to help us address any eventuality that comes up in terms of the upgrades or in terms of any other issue.
I can confidently say that I will not come and ask for money for hardware in my data center, and I won't be coming to ask for costs for upgrades for the system. And we can run down the list of all the different types of items that usually are accompanied with these big systems. And that's, I think, one of the many benefits of this contract, and that's why we're proposing it.
And how does this contract with CGI relate to the action taken by this committee and the council in November for the license and maintenance?
Yes, yeah, I know you've heard a lot about contracts from CGI over the last couple of months. The previous 3 contracts that you dealt with, one was just an enumeration of all our license entitlements, so it just says these are the modules that we've paid for and that we're entitled to, both from CGI as well as third-party software providers that relate to the FMS system. There was another contract that you approved for $12 million, approximately $12 million, and that was for our maintenance on that licensing. So that's what gives us overall rights to the support and upgrades and after-hours support for any kind of technical issues that come up. So that's related again to the maintenance, and those are costs that we would have to pay if we want to continue to use the licenses at all. There was another contract that you approved related to the SMS replacement, and this was for implementation services. And that contract, the issue that you approved at that time was to add a few modules or a few components to the SMS replacement for vendor self-service, for the ethics reporting that we wanted to provide. There was a third thing. Oh, the commodity bid process. So that you were adding some implementation services. That contract will be up at the end of the next fiscal, when the expiration of the following fiscal year. Beyond that, we would just be, if there are no additional modules added, we would just be looking at the licensing contract and this hosting service, which would total about $6 million.
Ali, any additional questions? Okay, great. So last question, the type of review that's going to take place before the 5-year mark, I know there's going to be some key reviews then. What do you expect? What are the types of reviews that have to happen before the first mark?
What we'd be looking at really is whether they're meeting the service levels. There are very specific service levels in the contract, and it would be to determine whether we were pleased with the way they were meeting those service levels.
The system needs to be available. Issues need to be resolved in a rapid fashion. We have something like 8 to 10 different categories of very clear service level agreements that have financial payments if they don't comply.
Great. Okay, then without objection, then we're going to recommend approval of this item. Well, actually, one other thing we want to do on this item, amend the CAO recommendations to include an infrastructure for ITA to provide annual status updates on the transition from city-hosted FMS environments to a CGI cloud-hosted one. Basically, we don't want to wait 5 years or 10 years. We want to make sure that that this is working the way it's intended. So without objection, I'd like to add that amendment for an annual updates. Seeing no objection, that'll be the order to approve this item as amended with the request for annual updates.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, we're going, as mentioned earlier, we're going to skip that until our next meeting and move straight to item number 4.
Yes, sir. Item number 4 is a Board of Airport Commissioner report relative to the Terminal 1.5 project as described in the FIS M&D and Terminal 1.5 project LAX Plan Compliance Review, also referenced as the Executive Director's LAX Plan Compliance Report.
Great.
Good afternoon. My name is Angelica Espiritu. I am a city planner with Los Angeles World Airports, and I'm here to present the T1.5 project to you. And I'm here to provide a very brief PowerPoint presentation. LAW is proposing a new structure at LAX between Terminal 1 and 2, referred to as a Terminal 1.5 project, which will provide additional space for passenger screening, baggage processing, and enhanced safety and security. The Board of Airport Commissioners last month considered and approved the proposed project on December 1st, including the approval of the LAX Plan Compliance Determination, adoption of the final initial study mitigative negative declaration, and the mitigated monitoring and reporting program. This graphic shows the location currently in the CTA. There is no building, as you can see, between the terminals. The project elements will include ticketing, passenger and baggage check-in and security screening, and baggage claim space. As part of the security screening, there will be security screening checkpoints and TSA support, secure and non-secure connectors between the terminals, additional support space, demolition and reconstruction of Terminal 2 of the easternmost portion and the westernmost portion of Terminal 1, resulting in a loss of one gate. The project objectives are to enhance the passenger level of service by encouraging active utilization of the existing curb, and also to reduce the congestion in front of the terminals, as is now with Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. In addition, it's to meet the federal safety requirements and provide a secure connector between the terminals to avoid checking out or repeating the security screening process. The LAX specific plan mandates LAWA's executive director make a recommendation regarding the LAX plan compliance on all projects to the Board of Airport Commissioners and City Council. Prior to construction, the board must make the recommendation and City Council must approve with conditions, modify or deny the request for the LAX plan compliance based on findings that the proposed project complies with the LAX plan, the LAX specific plan, and that it has adequately analyzed it's been adequately analyzed in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and the applicable mitigation measures. So the request today is to approve the LAX plan compliance determination as recommended by the executive director, find that the proposed project complies with all the applicable plans, has been adequately analyzed under CEQA, and that the applicable mitigation measures have been incorporated, and concur with the board's action in the proposed Terminal 1.5 project as described in the mitigated net deck. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. So you might have said it, but what's the estimated construction timeline for this project?
I believe it's, I don't recall offhand. I know it's a 2-year process. I'm looking back because our environmental consultant. Oh.
Debbie Bowers with LAWA. We are in negotiations with one of the airlines, and they think they can get it done in about 2.5 years, but on time to provide the core for the airport people mover.
Okay, well, that gives you plenty of time if it's
Yes.
2.5 years. So,
Yeah.
but that's the rough ballpark.
Right. We're trying to accelerate it. They're looking at some opportunities. Of course, there's some challenges too. But and Southwest is the airline we're working with.
Okay, thank you. Now, so the plan is to allow passengers from 1 and 2, they can be processed at 1.5? Is that?
They'd be processed at Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, but yes, also at 1.5, there would be security screening checkpoints and baggage claim.
That means you could choose whichever one you wanted?
Yes, there would be both a secure and a non-secure corridor, so similar to the T4 connector, I believe that you may be familiar with.
And part of this is the loss of Gate 10, right?
Yes, there would be a reduction of one gate.
Which airline uses that, and how is that working?
Terminal 1 would be the Southwest Airlines, and essentially they would just reallocate those assigned spaces to nearby gates, but it shouldn't interrupt the operations.
So their total number of gates isn't changing?
There would be a loss of one gate, so there would be a change.
Is that affecting their number of flights, or that?
No, the number of flights would stay the same, but it would be shifted, I suppose, to a different gate that's close by.
Okay, so that's able to do that without causing additional delays and whatnot. There's obviously enough give in the system to do that.
That's correct.
Okay. And the Terminal 4 connector was constructed with green building codes, Tier 2 standards. Will this be constructed with similar green standards?
Yes, we would be designing it with the LA Green Building Code in mind.
Great. Colleagues, any additional questions on this item? No? Well, great. Then we're going to recommend without objection, I'm going to approve the LAWA recommendations as put forward. Thank you very much for the presentation. All right, we'll move on to item number 5. Actually, I think we'll take up items 5 and 6 together since they're similar. If you would read both of those items into the record, we can deal with them both at once.
Yes, sir. Item number 5 is a Board of Airport Commissioner report relative to the equipment acquisition agreements with Tom Bradley International Terminal Equipment Company to acquire upgrades to the baggage handling system in the Tom Bradley International Terminal and the midfield satellite concourse at Los Angeles International Airport. Item number 6 is another Board of Airport Commissioners report relative to the amended and restated lease and license agreement with Tom Bradley International Terminal Equipment Company covering operations and maintenance of the aeronautical equipment at LAX.
Great. So if you could cover both items.
Okay, just to explain to you, the Tom Bradley International Terminal Equipment Company is really a consortium of all the airlines in Tom Bradley International Terminal. They act sort of like the signatory airlines do. They lease space, they provide services like the wheelchair services and things. They also lease and maintain equipment, predominantly the jet bridges and the baggage handling system. And so in all of that, we've treated them pretty much like we have the signatory airlines in the fact that we allow them to do some of the acquisition and implementation of equipment. We have some standards that they have to oblige by to maintain the equipment. And in most cases, just like the signatory airlines and the deals we've been doing, we will acquire the equipment back. So the first one, the two acquisitions, they've already embarked on a plan to improve the baggage handling system in Tom Bradley International Terminal. In conjunction with building the midfield satellite concourse, we have to get all the luggage and baggage screened and out to the midfield. We are also trying to improve the service levels. So the $185 million will, the tunnel is being built by the MSC team, but they will put all the equipment inside, all of the conveyor belts and everything, and all the screening equipment. We also, I think you've seen the presentation, will have a building on the north end that will be a new sortation area, which will solve a lot of problems that we have currently with the baggage system. And we are putting in an innovative carrier system for the bags that I think is the first one that's being planned for the U.S. I don't know if it'll be the first one that'll be implemented when we get done, but it is the first one being planned. And so that's all to get set up so that we can actually process people and use the midfield satellite concourse. After that is done, they'll go back and fix other parts of the system. And once they have that done, the $75 million project, we will be up to 5,500 bags per hour processed, which is our goal ultimately. We'll solve a lot of the baggage issue problems that we're having there. We're asking to extend the lease for, amendment for the lease for one reason, to extend it so that the term goes the same time period that we think it will take to do all this construction. And also with the Delta move from 5 and 6 to 2 and 3, this consortium also has a subset that represents the airlines in Terminal 3. That consortium will give up the space in Terminal 3. It will go to Delta. They will move over to Terminal 5 and provide the same services, and will need, obviously, space and the rights to handle the equipment and stuff in Terminal 5. So we're just doing some cleanup, and that's both items.
Anything to add as opening, or?
Jim House, City Administrative Office. We reviewed both items and recommend their approval.
Thank you. We appreciate the presentation. Now, we approved a project to increase baggage handling at Tibbet not too long ago. And obviously, if we had anticipated the level, we wouldn't have had to make the change. It would have been cheaper to do it up front. Are you planning with enough future growth in mind? What are the assumptions? How many passenger assumptions are you making? Is it the 96 million passengers per year assumption? Are we thinking big enough so that we don't have to come back in a few years and readjust?
Yes. I don't remember the number. It is the maximum that we could do. The airlines have looked at all of that. They have a lot of analysis that they have done, and they think that this will carry them through a full capacity of using the Midfield Satellite Concourse and the Tibbet gates. So they're very comfortable that
we're doing it as far as we can.
Right. And the new technology is going to help a lot also. And
you mentioned we're the first ones to plan it. When do we estimate that it'll actually be complete? And at that point, LAWA makes the purchase of it. Is it immediate upon completion, or how long does that take?
Once they have completed it, and we have to do a formal closeout and make sure that we have verified all the invoices and the project and stuff, we have 60 days to make the actual payment. So we have that built into our capital improvement plan, our program.
And the estimated date for all of that?
It would be shortly after the Midfield Satellite Concourse. They are working alongside the team that's building the Midfield Satellite Concourse. And so I can't remember the date that we're supposed to have that. I think it's first quarter 2020. They probably within the first half of 2020, we'd actually make the acquisition, because they should be complete by that time. Yeah.
Colleagues, any additional questions on this item or on these items? Thank you. No, this is great. We're all about trying to modernize in good ways. Obviously, there's going to be some growing pains as we go through all this, and we're doing so much at one time throughout the airport, and this is just another example, but it's getting us on the right course to make the airport the one first-rate airport we want it to be. So without objection on both these items, we will adopt the LAWA recommendation. Okay. And that brings us to item 7. Read item 7 into the record.
Yes, sir. Item number 7 is a Board of Airport Commissioners report relative to the amended and restated lease with Pacific Aviation Development, LLC, to facilitate completion of development of the propeller park at Van Nuys Airport.
Thanks, John. Both this item and number 9, I'm happy to do them on consent. They're fairly straightforward. So without objection, items 7 and 9 will be on consent. Thank you for your almost presentation on that item. Appreciate it. And we'll move to what will be is this our last item? Item 8.
Yes, sir. Item number 8 is another Board of Airport Commissioners report relative to the second amendment to the agreement with Authorized Taxicab Supervision, INC, to modify payment requirements covering management of taxicab operation at LAX.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Charlene Sue, Chief Management Analyst, Landside Management and Airport Permits.
Andrew Mills, CAO Office, and we have reviewed this proposed amendment to restructure the administrative process of getting the airport, to revise and update the airport taxi cab rate. it's an administrative process that's been revised in the collection.
Right. Well, and the key to the process, though, is that instead of requiring a fixed sum, it's going to be actually based on the real-time drive, right? That's a big change.
Correct. It's instead of doing a fixed amount up front, they will pay for their actual trips of the month versus a year-end reconciliation. It's more of an administrative accounting update.
There's no change in the revenue received in the actual, because when they had to do the, true up, then that made the revenue actually go to the count.
Right. It would end up as the actual
Yes.
at the end of the day anyway, but this is a recognition of that actual has been lower, right, than the amount, about 10%, is that right?
Correct.
And so that now we're saying rather than true it down each quarter or whenever, how often did you do the true up, which was really a true down?
It was an annual basis, so that there is a regular, more of an actual each month rather than at the end of a 12-month period.
Right. So now rather than having to do those true downs or true ups, depending on what it was, it'll be done in more of a real-time fashion.
Correct.
Okay. Now, and that makes sense to me. I have no problem with that. It makes good sense. Just as sort of a side issue, the city has a non-discrimination policy that applies to anyone wanting to do business or enter into a contract. We discussed the issue which was brought up by the Doug Granville issue with cabs a while ago, and as part of that, I submitted a motion resulting in a new penalty structure to address driver violations of the non-discrimination policy. And at that time, we asked for a report back in a year. The year has passed. We haven't had that report back, so I'm going to schedule that for the next committee meeting. And I raise it now in relation to this, because while I might have been concerned about making sure that gets implemented, this agreement does include a cancellation clause, a 90-day notice by the city with or without cause. Which is, I think, is smart for us to have that in there. It is something that is in the agreement, and presumably it's mostly applied to the financials. If someone is not meeting their financial obligations under the terms of the lease, then we would have recourse. But it also could be related to other issues, such as our non-discrimination policy. I have no reason to think that at this point that we're not getting perfect compliance, but I do look forward to getting that one-year update coming forward.
Yes, we'll have that at the next meeting.
Great. Colleagues, any additional questions on this? Mr. Krikorian.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not entirely clear from the report what the scope of work for taxi cab management services includes. What is this vendor exactly providing to the airport?
They actually manage the taxi dispatch lot as well as the dispatch activity itself. So in terms of monitoring the taxis in the day and the holding lot, and they they monitor that and that activity and manage that on a 24/7 basis on the lot. The inflow and the outflow of the taxis as they are dispatched and as they're call-in and waiting to be dispatched to the various taxi stands within the central terminal area.
Okay. And so are they also the people who are standing there at the cab lines, at
Correct.
the cab stands to direct people in? And then to the chairman's point, they would be the people who would be that first interface with the visiting public who wants to get a cab, and would be the one that would be primarily ensuring that there isn't any discrimination by our cab drivers who are in the queue. Is it right?
Correct. They includes the starters that are at the taxi stands, as well as, again, their oversight of the actual taxis, drivers in the taxi vehicles, and making sure that they're in compliance with all the standards at the airport, as well as the taxi commission rules and regulations.
And my recollection, it's been a while, but my recollection when we had that discussion is that we were going to try to do more to ensure that there were hotlines, that the consumer could dial directly and so on. But this person, this employee who's standing at the cab stand for this vendor, we would expect that that employee would be reporting any violations by any cab driver of our discrimination standards. right? I mean, that's their obligation to do.
That's correct.
Okay. So then, just moving forward, we have had a significant drop-off. Looks like between 10 and 25% in cab fares year over year, depending on the month, which, since we have record-breaking growth at the airport and trips are, flights are breaking all records, that number should not be going down. There hasn't been any change in transportation at the airport other than the addition of TNCs in the airport. Is that what this drop-off is attributable to?
There isn't any direct per se that we've seen. All of the modes are being affected by the change in transportation and traffic at LAX. So I can't say there's any one cause for the shift there.
Okay.
So we are analyzing that over the period of, we've seen exponential growth in airport activity in total.
Yeah, I mean, there's a significant increase in passengers in and out. There's been no addition of any transportation resource at the airport other than TNCs. So I would expect that your analysis would find that there is a one-to-one correlation of TNCs to taxi cab fares lost. But you're doing that analysis, we'll see. So I guess that brings me to my next question. Who is conducting this compliance service with regard to TNCs at the airport?
We are doing that in-house with with LAWA resources.
With what? I'm sorry.
With LAWA resources.
Okay. So is there anybody out there on the street ensuring that if a visitor from another country arrives and a TNC blows them off, that is being reported as a violation of our anti-discrimination standards?
Is included within the TNC agreement, and we've expanded their reporting to us on any discrimination complaints and their resolution that comes to us on a monthly basis.
Okay, so we're counting on the TNC itself to do that compliance rather than having a management service that the airport contracts with to do that.
Not specifically, but again, they can, customers can report directly to the TNCs, as well as the taxis or any of our commercial transportation modes. We have our own service. They can report directly to LAWA, to LAX. They can report to my office. They can report through our info line or to our guest services or to any mode within the airport as well. Any of the transportation modes or any customers can report directly to us, as well as they can report directly to the operator.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions on this item? So without objection, we will approve the CAO and LAWA recommendations on this item. Thank you. I believe that concludes all of our items. Great. So all of our votes are concluded. We'll now hear public comment. So here we go.
Thank you.
Returning the favor. Yes. So starting with Ms. Ramirez for your 1 minute of public comment.
Everybody stalks me. It doesn't end. Thank you very much. This is a matter of principle. Trade and commerce is vitally important for the sustenance of any robust, vibrant economy. The big enchilada airline carrier Fat Cats have not put our beloved pilots in the finest hotels where they need to rest prior to and after their long flights. We should therefore sanction and fine millions of dollars to all hotels who deprive our beloved pilots from healthy, restful, peaceful, and rejuvenating respite, again, prior to and after flights. Let us not be inhumane, and no more cruel and unusual punishment to all our beloved military aviators, our commercial pilots and small aircrafts. No more sleeping on cots or in vehicles. But don't you worry, our great patriotic leader, El Jefe, Donald Trump, is going to overhaul America's trade and commerce and will make it safe, secure, private, opulent, classy, elegant, and with the finest customer service, with beauty, graciousness, and hospitality, thereby making America #1 in high-class services with impeccable sanitized cleanliness. God bless Donald Trump. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Next, Mr. Herman.
Just for the record, I believe Mr. Goldman stepped out and broke a quorum in violation of the Ralph M. Brown Act. Stick around, clown. Besides, when it comes to innovation, let's talk about the innovation of transportation near the so-called Imperial Wilmington area. Why is it that we have an area targeted by Joe Busquiano for poor transportation? Isn't that where the Green Line or the Rosa Park Line runs through Watts? Why do we have such an eyesore, as I call it? Maybe because Mr. Joe Busquiano didn't want to participate in the MLK parade yesterday and sponsor his hometown of Watts. But let me remind you once again, unreasonable force against individuals with mental health disability is a bad choice. When crisis fails to make any LAPD officer unreasonably not make good decisions for modifications when interacting with individuals with mental disabilities, you're in violation of the ADA, American Disability Act of 1990.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Next, we have the name The Puppet, which I assume is you, Mr. Spindler.
Go ahead, my counsel will speak.
Yes. Now, as you see, you broke the quorum. You violated city law. You violated state law. When are you guys going to keep it in the pants? You're supposed to do your job. You are employees of the Municipal Corporation of Los Angeles. You're being sued not once but twice in federal district court for stupid shit just like this. How fucking stupid can you be to break your quorum and not sit for 3 fucking minutes in a meeting you jacked off on for over an hour and a half so you comply with the law? You walk out, you have Krikorian walk out, and you violate the goddamn law. You have to stay in quorum. Once the quorum's broken, you violate the Brown Act. When are you guys going to learn? If you don't want to do the job, fucking quit. If not, do the job. Jack-offs.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Next is the Red Chief Hunt. Calling Mr. Hunt. Seeing no Mr. Hunt, let the record reflect he's not here.
Can I speak for him?
You cannot. You cannot.
Well, there's no quorum. Can I speak for him?
So, seeing as Mr. Hunt is not here, this meeting is adjourned.
Can